Welcome to my channel. My name's Tracy. In today's video we will be making these grungy little cards, and we're going to do the light rainbow, and off we go. And here's a still photo of the light and dark. Well, hello, welcome. So happy to have you here. So in today's video, I'm going to be using the new, from Simon Hurley's new release, the Fading Lines stamp. And I'm going to just take it out of the package and just lay it face up on my mat. And then I'm going to actually take this Simon Hurley Stamping Foam, and I'm going to mount it to a kind of matching size stamping block. And we are going to make a reverse pattern here. And I'll show you why later in the video, why not just use the stamp. Because you could just use the stamp in most cases, but there's one case where I probably wouldn't. So first thing you got to do is heat up this little pad so that it can accept the design and also clear off any other old design that you might have. You want to get it nice and warm, 10 to 20 seconds, and then you're going to press down on it, and I'm going to tell you I'm standing up. You want to press very, very hard and get good pressure on it so it'll make that impression inside the stamping foam. And there it is, a nice deep impression. So we'll set this aside because we're done with this, and you can do this with any red rubber stamp. You could probably even do it with a photopolymer stamp, but they're just not as deep. So I've got here a piece of watercolor paper, and the reason I'm using watercolor is because, well, I'm going to be using water. And I've got the Holy Trinity, the Clear Skies, the Shooting Star, and the Prom Queen, and I'm just spreading them out with one of my pouncers onto the stamping foam. I'm just kind of pouncing the color on, and I want to get it pretty intense. And I'm going a little beyond both the, the middle so that I can blend colors. So next I'm going to go in with the Prom Queen. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to rub some on, and then I'll dab some on. Making sure I get up into that yellow so I get that little orange tone. And I'm going for, in this card, I'm going for a lighter rainbow. So, as you know, for me, it's rainbow month, so everything I do that I haven't done earlier, because some of my videos I do a month in advance, is going to have a rainbow in it. So now I'm going in with the Clear Skies and making sure I get into that shooting star so that I've got some yellow. And then I'm going to give this 3 squirts with my water sprayer. I want to make sure it's nice and wet. But I don't want to get my paper wet just yet. And you see how I'm kind of doing a sweeping motion? I want it very, very wet. And then I'm just going to come down on the paper, and we're going to be trimming this, so I'm not really worried about getting it in the middle, but I try anyway just because it's a force of habit. And I'm going to squeeze and give some good pressure because we are on watercolor paper, and I'm going to pull that up. And there we've got our impression, and you could stamp off that other ink and get even more if you wanted to. We're not going to do that today. I'm just going to give this a good dry. So now you've got kind of this variegated grungy look where it's not, absolutely perfect. It's got that white spaces in it, and that's what I want. And just make sure it's nice and dry before I move on to the next step. And so I'm going to clean off the stamp here. We can just clean it off with a little bit of water, and like I said, you can stamp that off onto something else if you want to. You could go for a long ways before you run out of ink. So, but what I'm going to do next is I'm going to grab another piece of paper so I can show you kind of what this would look like if it were grungy. That way I have time to, wait for that other one to completely dry. And so I'm going in with some Weeping Willow. I'm going to do the same thing, only it's going to be brown this time. And you don't have to put water on it. You can do it without water. But I do like to put water on because I like those colors to kind of spread. And I just wanted to show you, one of the different things that you can do with this little reverse stamping. So I've got that stamped down, and now you can see it's kind of more of a, more of a grungy looking piece of corrugated metal or something. So I'll go ahead and clean this off just to make sure I have it clean for next time. Because you can leave your pattern or your design in the stamping foam and it'll stay if you want to. But I also am going to be using it with some solar paste, and this is Golden Hour. So here's where the mixed media comes in, and it's kind of a shiny, fancy grunge. And I'm just taking my finger tool and rubbing it onto the stamping foam with the Golden Hour. Just kind of making sure I get it covered, and I don't mind if it's thick in some places and thin in others. Just get that kind of spread on there, and working rather quickly, I'm going to stamp this right on top of my design. I'll stamp that down, put the lid on, wipe my finger off while I'm kind of holding it down. And what happens when you do it this way and you lift it up, it brings texture, and you'll see in a moment. Let's give this another good push, little rock back and forth. And you can see that when I pulled that up, it has added texture and shine. So now I'm going to clean that off. And this is super easy to clean when you use either a lunar paste or a solar paste. Easier than a stamp. So that was the reason why I did this reverse technique mainly, is because I did want to use my my Simon Hurley paste. And here's this brown one that's mostly dry, so I'll just add a little bit more color to it. And I'm not going to do anything with this today, but you will see it in the future. So I'm going to grab a little roar and kind of add like a rusty color, so it looks like rusted metal. And you could also go in with, perhaps Gur, and, kind of darken down those kind of highlighted areas if you wanted to. And I'm going to come over this now with, wolf is what I meant, to try and kind of darken those down a little bit. And then I'm going to add a little bit of, I think, Tropical Tango, just so I have some patina going on. And so you can use Simon Hurley inks to get a grungy look. And then I'm just going to wet this all down and set it aside. Maybe let the colors run a little bit. Just so you can see that when you do it on the stamping foam, it kind of does give you that appearance of a raised area. Now I did try to later on actually use a stylus on those, but I had bad luck because I can't do straight lines no matter if I have a groove to do it in or not. So now I'm just going to make sure that this is all completely dry before I trim it down. And you can see the shine come out on that solar paste as it dries. Just give it a little dry from the back, because remember, it was thicker in some areas than others, but it wasn't so thick that it wouldn't dry pretty quickly. So we'll just keep on drying that until when I touch it, it doesn't become sticky, because I'm going to put it in my paper trimmer and I do not want to get solar paste all over my blade. So now I'm going to just trim it up to the edges. And this is, believe it or not, a clean and simple card with regard to how much stuff I put on it. Because the rainbow kind of says it all. And I'll set those aside. And I'm going to take what's left on my little pouncers and just scrape it onto the edges. So the blue with the blue, yellow with the yellow, the green, pink with the pink. And, overlapped a little bit so we still have that kind of rainbow effect. And let's go with the yellow. And I don't have any white edges. And I'm going to leave that inner part white. I like it that way. You could put color in there if you wanted to. But my whole plan here was to make something more abstract, sticking with my rainbow theme. All right, that's ready to rock. All I need to do now is put it together on a card and add a sentiment. And I am going to actually take this and put it on a black piece of paper, and this is the Ranger heavy stock, black heavy stock. But first, before I do that, I am going to cut out my, actually I better stamp it first, huh? I'm going to stamp and emboss my sentiment here. And I'm just kind of looking for placement because I don't want to waste that whole thing of paper. So I'm going to grab from the birthday party set, I'm going to grab You're a Priceless Gift. So that is definitely good for birthday or any other time. A thank you card. What maybe. So I'll go ahead and kind of place that where I want it. It doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to be cutting it out, but you know, I want to make sure that I have space to use that as a matte layer. And I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool from Rabbit Hole Designs and just make sure that I've got that black paper good and coated because it's really velvety and embossing powder likes to stick to it. But if you coat it really well, it works fine. And I'm going to stamp this twice, but I'm not pressing hard. So because I use the anti-static powder, it looks like it's been stamped in white almost. But I'm going to actually use some gold embossing powder because I'll later be using some topaz gems. And so I use the golden hour, so that kind of keeps up with the gold theme. And here's me looking for my embossing powder. Here it is. And I'm going to use the Brutus Monroe Gilded. I really like the way this stuff works. I don't know how it's different from others, but I feel like it's great. And I'm just kind of lightly thumping to get any light particles off, and then I'll do another coat just to make sure everything's covered, and then blow it off. And you can see that there's a bit of gold like residue all over the card. That's okay, I'm not mad. It'll be fine. Anything that I don't want on there I can brush off. But it really doesn't show up that much once you've heat embossed it. And I do take it off to the side and tap it off a little bit more. And then I'll just take my heat tool and melt that embossing powder and get that cut out. Making sure my heat tool is nice and hot so that I don't have to sit on this paper too long with heat. It just takes a few seconds, and there we've got a beautiful gold. And now I can cut that out after it's cooled. Make sure you cool it first. And I will cut that out, obviously, off camera because I don't have an awkward die cutting cam. I'm using my Vagabond to cut it out, so it's over across the room. Luckily, I have a rolly chair and nothing in the way, so I can roll over there quickly. But I am going to tape that down to make sure it's nice and even. And here we are, and I've also got a little white shadow layer that I'm going to use. And now I can go ahead and matte that, that rainbow grungy wall looking thing. And the paper's the perfect size. All I'll need to do is trim off one side, and I'll save the other side for other die cuts or another one of these. So I like to glue it down, and then I just trim off the excess. I don't have a specific die for any of that. And I am just cutting this down so that it's even on all sides. And the border is going to be a very, very thin border. And then I'm adding more ink here because I obviously cut off where I had inked it earlier. Let's take a look here. Yep, looks like it's going to fit just fine with just a sliver of a border. What do they call it? A fly's eyelash? I would say, if I were to venture to guess, being a seamstress, a 1/16 of an inch. Or maybe a centimeter. Maybe a centimeter, maybe not even quite that. I don't know. It's, you know, a bit. A little bit. Because I feel like black always brings out the color in rainbow. Just complements it very well. And then I'll just kind of eyeball it here and trim it off. Nope, a little bit more, itty bit more. There we go. Now we've got a nice thin border and we're ready to put our card together. All right, so I'm going to grab a white card base because I think this is going to look best on a white card base. And this looks like I'm doing a top folding. I did this a few days ago, so I forgot. Yep, it's top folder. So I'll go ahead and glue this down to the card base, getting it in the center, eyeballing it. I'm not going to use a square or anything like that. I'm just going to eyeball it because my eyes are very discerning. They know what they like and don't like. Okay, that looks to be about in the middle. Happy with that. Not going to pop it up or anything else. It's a nice flat card, although it doesn't look flat, right? It looks like it has a corrugated texture. And then I'm gluing the two sentiments together with the white shadow layer, just a little offset. But before I do that, I'm going to add a little bit of gold speckles all over with this shimmer liquid stuff. It's just a gold color shimmer. Because I want a lot of gold on this card. Because whoever gets this card is a priceless gift, right? There we go. And we'll, of course, need to let that dry before we start messing around with it. And it does take, I don't know, 5-10 minutes to completely dry. So I'll walk off, maybe clean up my area, and come back when it's dry. So now it's nice and dry. We've got our sentiment, and we've got our white shadow layer. You can see my mat's still a little bit wet from me cleaning it off. I clean off my mat with alcohol wipes. So I'm just going to add a little glue to the black part of this sentiment, the main part. And I'm just going to offset it a little bit from the white, just so it stands out a little bit better on the card, because I'm not going to be popping it up. Or am I? I forgot. I love it. Nope, going to glue it straight down. That's what I thought. And I'm just going to decide on a spot and commit, and the last thing I need to do is just add my bling to it. So it's a very simple but very blingy card. I'm just making sure that's good and stuck down because I'm using a glue that takes a moment to grab hold. I'm going to grab my little tray here, and I've got these little gems, and they are topaz colored. I'm just going to pour some in the tray. And I'm going to sprinkle them in kind of a diagonal fashion so that it balances out, where I put my sentiment. And I'm sort of counting. So I think I've got 5 there, and then I'll do 2 underneath the sentiment headed back towards the right bottom. And the fun part is these gems are all the same size, so I don't need to worry about picking through. I just need to worry about picking up the ones that are sticking up instead of flipped over. I hate that whole turtle situation when you can't grab them. They just roll around and stay on their backs. Okay. Oops, I think I need more glue. Nope, that one wants to be, yeah, there we go. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then let's do 2 more down towards the bottom, and we'll call this card done. So by the time you put the gems on there, it's not completely flat, but they'll be fine in the mail with no extra postage. There we go. That's it, we're done with the card. So let me hold it up here so you can see it. And you can see all that golden grungy goodness. And then I'll show you the one that I did a darker rainbow. And I just used darker shades. I used Bee Sting, I used Shooting Star, and I used No Diving. So, and you don't have to do rainbows. You can do whatever you want with it. This one I'm meh about because it's on watercolor paper. And so the watercolor texture kind of came through. That's something I'll work on. But here's our little stamp, and I can keep that as a stamp and use it as often as I want, or I can take my heat tool and just turn it off, blow the pattern out of it. And this is what we use. We use the fading lines. So lots of fun with those. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.